Obviously Major League Baseball is going to try and spin this towards the positive, but it is not good for the short term, for the long term, for the financial success of baseball as a game, but also for the flat-out popularity of Major League Baseball as a product. What's happened here is not great.
Here's Brody Brazil.
So this is news from late last week that I really feel like it fell way below the radars of most sports fans. And it's something that they will realize, like when it actually happens. Right here, right now, though, it's so far out ahead, it's hard to actually comprehend. The relationship between ESPN and Major League Baseball, that long-standing relationship, is effectively over. Now, it's not instantly coming to an end. It will continue through this 2025 baseball season, but 26, 27, 28 were also under contract between these two entities. None of those years, as of right now, will actually take place. So let me kind of spell out the bigger picture here and what actually happened. Back in 2021, ESPN signed a national rights deal, a contract to show baseball games and usually the All-Star game a lot of times, or the Home Run Derby and some postseason games. That contract started in 2021. It was due to expire in 2028, but they're cutting it off. There was a window here, March 1st. There was a window, kind of an opt-out for ESPN, and they tried to renegotiate. Baseball wasn't flexible, it sounds like, and so ESPN is opting out. Even though the parties are saying, at least baseball is saying, this was a mutual agreement to terminate the deal after 2025, it does kind of seem and feel like this was ESPN's choice. This is them backing out of a contract and an extension and part of a deal that they had at the very end. These are partners since 1990. And I feel like for just a second, we can talk about the monetary side of this and what baseball is going to lose out on and what ESPN was trying to cut back on a little bit. But in terms of baseball finding another partner like ESPN, they're not going to find one that's that unique, that is that well positioned among sports fans. They're going to have to go in a new route, in a new direction. Who knows if it will be as successful as the relationship with ESPN, but yeah, there was something going good, right? If you're partners since 1990 and you've redone deals and you've re-upped, like this is a significant change in the direction of the wind here if a partnership since 1990 is no longer after the 2025 baseball season. This comes to us from Sports Illustrated, a little analysis on the inside of this story. According to Rob Manfred, baseball's commissioner, ESPN had approached Major League Baseball to reduce the $550 million it spends annually on the deal, citing the $85 million that Apple and the $10 million package that Roku pay for their deals. So essentially, there are other competing products with ESPN. They're not the only national rights holder. Again, Apple and Roku have jumped in on recent years for smaller deals, though, and for much smaller amounts. Like, there's no questioning here that the Apple deal, it's a Friday night game. It's one game a week. That's why it's $85 million a year. And the Roku deal, I think it's early Sunday mornings. Is that the deal they took over? So again, these are different products, different placements, different treatments, different prices. But ESPN saw that and said, well, it doesn't compare to the $550 we're spending. We want to cut back on that. ESPN's family of networks has broadcast the primetime Sunday night baseball game since 1990. Manfred cited 2024's improved Sunday night baseball ratings, which were up 6% from the prior year, he said, as a reason against reducing that ESPN fee. So essentially, it came down to the final 3 years. ESPN, it sounds like, tried to negotiate their deal down. Baseball wasn't willing to do that, so ESPN backs out. Baseball and Rob Manfred get a little bit testy here when they throw this in the mix. Quote, "We have not been pleased with the minimal coverage that MLB has received on ESPN's platform over the past several years outside of the actual live game coverage." Now, when Manfred talks about ESPN's platforms over the years, it's all the other shows during the day. They're dominated by NFL coverage, NBA coverage. Heck, ESPN has NHL deals too, the national rights for that. And there's not a lot of NHL programming midday on ESPN or on their social channels. Let's be honest, ESPN is very much focused on the NFL, also very much critical towards basketball coverage and dedicated to basketball coverage. Baseball and hockey are largely not seen on ESPN to the same degree as the NFL and NBA. So Manfred does have a point, but the other side of that is that if baseball were so popular and ESPN couldn't ignore it, of course they'd put it on their platform. See what I'm saying here? It is a statement of both sides. Manfred is not incorrect, but there's a deeper root level issue and cause and problem here that needs to be also maybe figured out from baseball's side of it. More for Manfred, quote, "We do not think it's beneficial for us to accept a smaller deal to remain on a shrinking platform," as in ESPN maybe pushing some of the Major League Baseball games to their streaming packages and other things like that. To that end, we have been in conversations with several interested parties around these rights over the past several months and expect to have at least 2 potential options for consideration over the next few weeks. Okay, so it sounds like to baseball, ESPN backing out was a little bit expected if they really are and have been seeking out new partners. And the fact that Manfred is already kind of promising and hinting that in the next few weeks, we might see another announcement. Let's hold baseball to that. If they really have something else on the table, I'm interested to see what it is. But here's some more analysis via The Athletic. MLB, meanwhile, could be hard-pressed to find similar dollars elsewhere. Like I said, the opportunity to be on ESPN, kind of the melting pot of all sports fans that it is, was a good place to be. I understand if the coverage wasn't what baseball wanted, but at least the positioning was good. But this is the other side of it, the dollar factor. And 3 more years of, $550 million or more a year, baseball's now not going to get that, and maybe they're not going to get anything close for 2026, 2027, 2028 for like a Sunday night baseball package. The ESPN contract, which would have lasted 7 years, was agreed to back in 2021, as you know. ESPN had this statement, quote, "We are grateful for our long-standing relationship with Major League Baseball and proud of how ESPN's coverage super serves fans. In making this decision, we applied the same discipline and fiscal responsibility that has built ESPN's industry-leading live events portfolios. We continue to grow our audience across," this is so corporate, "linear, digital, and social platforms. As we have been throughout the process, we remain open to exploring new ways to serve MLB fans across our platforms beyond 2025. That comes like straight from a PR department that is almost not even intended towards the casual fan to understand all that lingo and terminology. That's like such a business statement right there. So I'm going to do 2 sets of takeaways here. One half of it, the ESPN side, the other half of it, Major League Baseball takeaways. Let's start with the ESPN takeaways. Look, they still hold a very influential platform for casual and hardcore sports fans. And I mentioned earlier, it's kind of a melting pot of sports fans. ESPN is in such a place where if you were watching an NFL show and then NBA game comes on next, you might stick around and watch basketball if you weren't going to before. Or the same thing with baseball thrown in the mix. Or obviously hockey is part of their portfolio. So you get that crossover of sports fans, and let's be honest. At a bar, a lot of times, they want to put on sports, and the proprietors don't know what else to put on. They just throw on ESPN, whether that's the right channel or the wrong channel or for what you were trying to watch. ESPN is kind of a default place to start for sports fans. And you know what? It is true. They have done a lot less coverage in the last 20 years of Major League Baseball. Remember when Baseball Tonight was actually an every night show? And not just something they spotted in here and there before or after a baseball game that they were already covering. And again, the real problem is, it's not for Rob Manfred that ESPN hasn't been covering baseball as much. It's why has ESPN not been covering baseball as much? You know that if the results were there for ESPN, if they saw in their ratings that, there was a good result of covering baseball on a more regular basis, ESPN would be doing it. That's not a good statement to make for the overall popularity of baseball. When they've got all these other sports and deals and they just can't slide baseball in, that is not a good thing. They're not doing this intentionally. They would do this if baseball carried the right weight. And I say this as a baseball fan. I wish baseball was more prominent in the mix with football and basketball coverage. ESPN has also in recent years been through multiple layoff rounds and cost-cutting rounds, and so it comes as no surprise that they're trying to renegotiate their deal. Now, they've also signed huge deals in the billions of dollars with the NBA and NFL, and so $550 million for baseball, and you're trying to cut that back. But again, It just goes to show you the value of what they're spending versus maybe what they think they're getting out of this. And of course, the NFL and NBA, those deals, like I mentioned here many times, they're in the spotlight. It's also a lesser degree for the NHL, but the NHL also has a different setup, scenario, outcome, and maybe goals for all of this than baseball does. So a little bit of apples and oranges, but hockey and baseball very much in the same category with ESPN. Here are my baseball takeaways. Number one, it's not good to prematurely end a deal that I think a lot of people agree is going to pay better, was going to pay better than anything else that baseball is now going to do. It doesn't matter who they sign with. If it's a broadcast partner, a streaming partner, a combination of both, some type of hybrid, if they don't flat out get like $575 million a year for the Sunday night game and the home run derby and playoff games and whatever the ESPN package was, if they don't repurpose that and sell it to somebody else for more, like at least 6% more, as in the ratings, then it's a bad situation for baseball. They lost out. Right? And the fact that this deal was in place and it couldn't even be upheld. ESPN had the ability to opt out and they did, it sounds like. MLB seems very also intent on starting up their own unified streaming package. Basically, you won't necessarily watch on a network, or there will be a combination of network, but also their own streaming product and platform, and you pay baseball directly to watch your favorite team or division or league or all the games. I don't know how it's going to go. But that streaming package, again, if it's not going to instantly from day one produce $550 million, then it's not a success. Or at least in the long term, even if it's a couple of years, if it can't get you to that same number of where you were at before, it's obviously not a success. There's also been a huge shakeup already with regional sports networks and 11 or 12 teams this past winter. 11 teams that had deals with Bally's Sports Network had to renegotiate for lesser amounts. That's what basically baseball didn't do here. The teams renegotiated for lesser amounts in a lot of cases, but the league didn't even have that option because ESPN backed out. So we're seeing regional and national partners paying a lot less for their rights than they used to, or in this case, even just flat out backing out of deals. I mean, that's a huge revenue uncertainty right there. We talk about the popularity, we talk about not being on a platform like ESPN, but revenue uncertainty to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars per team, and now $550 million for Major League Baseball. And again, is there any similar partner to ESPN that can produce the reach they do for Major League Baseball or for any other sport or league for that matter? Again, if it's a streaming platform, if it's an old school broadcast platform, I just don't know that they'll have the ultimate ability to do what ESPN has done over the years. And so it's sad. That theme song, da, 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 it's going to be gone after 2025. And what a weird way to do this at the beginning of a season, like it's ESPN's farewell season with Major League Baseball, something that has existed most of my lifetime. Since the year 1990, it has been a staple, and it's kind of sad to see that change. Like, I wish the best for both parties, but I think this is kind of a sign of the times for baseball. They're at this turning point. They've got some big things to figure out financially and from a marketing standpoint, and we'll see where this goes. Thumbs up since you made it here to the end of this video down below. I'd really appreciate that. Helps me, this video, and this channel. And one more thing, don't forget to also go down there and subscribe, so I can definitely see you back here next time.